Good evening. I think we are ready to begin the introductory video. I'd like to call the December 5th, 2022 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission to order. Thank you all for being with us this evening. I want to announce that anybody who's attending the meeting who parked in one of the county parking garages or used public transit to travel to the meeting can get validation for your parking or transit. Just see one of the sheriff's officers on your way out and they can validate that. I would like to read the ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which would have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before the board at this meeting? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on all matters voted on by the board at our meeting tonight. So we come to the consent agenda. We have forgotten to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. Before we go to the consent agenda, please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Wells. We only do that first thing at every single meeting, and it's right at the top of the page. Pledge of Allegiance. All right. We come to the consent agenda. Commissioners, are there any items about any questions about any items on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Before we vote, let me ask the members of the public, does anybody have any question about any items that are on the consent agenda? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we come to public comment. We have a number of folks who have signed up, so I'm going to go through the list. Apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name. And if there's anybody interested in making public comment who didn't sign up, there'll be an opportunity to do that once we go through the list of the folks who did sign up. The first person that signed up is Scott Kuhlman. And as Scott's coming up, I'll just share that the time limit for public comment is 3 minutes. You'll get an orange light when you've got about 30 seconds left, and a red light and a beep will go off once your time's up. And we ask everyone to discontinue their comments once your time's up, because we want to give everyone the same amount of time.
Good evening, Commissioners. Welcome to our new commissioner. Thank you very much for your service. My name is Scott Kuhlman. I live on Pinners Cove Road, and I'm coming again tonight to talk about the KLP Pinners Eat major subdivision application. What I would like to do is go through a timeline of the events where Buncombe County Planning has been encouraging, advising the developers, KLP Pinners, on how to maximize the density for the proposed project. December 22, a year ago, KLP Pinners applied for rezoning of a portion of the property on Pinners Cove Road. In that application, there was no mention of a conservation easement. January 10, Buncombe County Planning Department accepted their staff's approval of the application and recommended sending it to the planning board, which was scheduled for January 24. On January 20, I received a call from the Buncombe County Planning Director asking that I have, quote, my people to stop calling the members of the planning board with concerns about rezoning. On the 24th of January of this year, Buncombe County Planning Board voted 7-1 to reject the recommendation to the Buncombe County of the plan to the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. January 28, Buncombe County, KLP Pinners asked the planning board or the planning department recommendations on what was the next step available. 3 days later, there was a meeting planned and attended. 2 days later, the developers pulled the plan from the February 15 commissioners meeting. They applied, May 20, they applied for a major subdivision since they could not get the rezoning done that they wanted to. During that time, they asked for a conservation easement, not a entirety, but one split so they could put a sewer plant in between. I have emailed this to you and you can follow along, but I ask that you would consider the citizens versus the developer.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Scott. All right, the next person that signed up is Minion Durham.
Thank you, and again, I'm here to talk about the Pinners Cove development. North American Land Trust has agreed to be the agent for this sham conservation easement. You see, the developer is running a sewage pumping station through the middle of this easement. So there will be zero recreation or environmental benefits here. This so-called easement is only to allow the developer to avoid current zoning regulations. This look-alike proposal was rejected by your planning board by 7-1 in January. NALT, North American Land Trust, has been involved in contested easements. In particular, one recently highlighted in the Philadelphia Inquirer in March, and I quote the title from the Philadelphia Inquirer, "Chester County Land Trust helped Trump save millions. That's just one of its deals," end of quote. Buncombe County deserves better than this, and you have the opportunity to disapprove of NALT's appointment. Furthermore, BizNow Media reported in May that the IRS has been working to crack down on investors who use a tax break meant for preserving natural resources to profit at taxpayer expense, and it hasn't been going well. So I'm not counting on the federal government to help in this situation, but I am counting on you, our local government, to know better and to do the right thing by rejecting NALT. Parker Sloan and Martin Moore, all District 3 voters, are counting on you. And really, who wants to be the butt of political cartoons? I'm sure you've seen the recent one in Mountain Express. Do the right thing, deny this proposal. There are articles in the Citizen Times and Mountain Express as well as to a political ad. So stop this opportunity. The dysfunctional traffic situation is horrific, and this one development will create a domino effect for the other farmers and families trying to live in Pinners Cove, forever ruined for everyone. Thank you.
Ben Williamson.
Thank you. Welcome, Commissioner Moore. Welcome, Dr. Jackson. I want to thank the board for listing change the occupancy tax as one of your top-tier legislative priorities for the upcoming year. This is yet another public recognition from this body that this tax, despite recent adjustments, remains deeply flawed, undemocratic, and harmful. When you finalize these priorities, we hope that change the occupancy tax remains at the top of your list, because changing the tax could unlock millions of dollars each year to benefit other county priorities that you've identified, such as education, childcare, broadband, housing. Other cities we know use occupancy tax funds for these purposes, and even tourism industry leaders are now calling for more attention to be given to communities. James Thornton, CEO of Intrepid Travel, stated, quote, "Tourism is going to become the poster child of something very negative if success metrics focus solely on occupancy tax rates and revenues. Not changing the tax is not an option anymore." We know tourism marketing incentivizes investors to set up short-term rental businesses, which we know reduces housing inventory. We know increases the rates for local renters. This tax now is an obstacle to higher quality of life in Buncombe. Multiple indicators such as cost of living, home prices, wages, poverty rate, homelessness show our economy is not working for most workers. There are, however, immediate, actionable, and realistic steps available. Lobbying the TDA to send money from the Legacy Fund to affordable housing this year is realistic and attainable through the legislation's recent change in language. We are ready to join you in that effort. Working with state elected leaders on a new local bill to revise this tax towards something more democratic and just is attainable. We are ready to join you in organizing a group to travel to Raleigh to help this happen. We also know this body has powerful tools, such as lowering the rate of the tax or canceling the tax altogether, if the TDA or Raleigh keep ignoring the realities of workers and families in Buncombe. It's past time for revenues earned by workers to address basic, critical needs with workers and elected leaders included in these decisions. We know our tourism brand is the experience our visitors have when they're with us. Forging a change to this tax isn't anti-tourist, it's pro-democracy. It's pro-family, pro-housing, pro-childcare, pro-education. These priorities promote a vibrant, healthy, and more equitable community, which improves experiences for our visitors and only strengthens our brand. Please vote for changes to occupancy tax as a top line in your legislative agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Next is Andrew Paul.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Paul, and I live here in Asheville. I'm a founder of Asheville for All, which is a nonprofit organization that advocates for pro-housing policy, and I'm here to express support as well for making the occupancy tax more democratic. The occupancy tax should be spent on the people that need it most and on the things that they say they need the most, and it seems to me that for our county, that means subsidized housing. It's really that simple. But I want to use some of my time to say two things as a means of clarifying what I think this occupancy tax fight should be about. First of all, I'm not anti-tourism. I'm not even anti-hotel. I'm not anti-rezoning. Let's be real. When people criticize the TDA and tourism money, sometimes they say things that are reactionary. They will say things like we need to prevent people from moving here, or that we need to stop population growth, full stop. This line of argument should not be taken seriously. The truth is that successful cities and successful counties grow. And if our county's growing, that's a good sign. We should welcome new neighbors and see them as assets to our cities and towns. Okay, number two, we know that allocating money for affordable housing does not help if we don't reform our zoning codes. Cities from California to Massachusetts have actually voted for subsidized home construction, and then little has been built because of exclusionary zoning. The biggest thing we can do to make housing more affordable is simply allowing more stuff to be built, and that costs virtually nothing. Okay, having cleared up those 2 points, we do know that growth does incur costs, and that tourism and tourism advertising does add to our already pressing housing demand. And we also know that Although adding more homes for every kind of family is crucial, it's always going to be necessary to support the bottom end to help out those who struggle the most with housing costs. And these are the very people that work in our tourism industry. So right now, there's a big pot of money that's going to tourism advertising when most residents in the county have better ideas on how that money should be spent. Again, we know that spending more on subsidized housing is chief among those ideas. So I hope that the county will have serious discussions about how we can make the occupancy tax more democratic. And I hope we'll talk about this stuff not because we're anti-growth or that we blame outsiders or that we use tourism as a distraction so we can continue to ignore our outmoded land use codes, but that we talk about it because a more sane process for spending the occupancy tax can be a way to really move forward with the county's vision plan and the vision plans of our cities and towns in more just and equitable ways. Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. Next is Jen Hampton.
Hello. Happy to be here again. Good to see y'all. My name's Jen, and I'm here both as a resident of Buncombe County and as the co-chair of Asheville Food and Beverage United. Also, I'm here to talk about changes to the occupancy tax. We're really happy to see that y'all listed it as a possible top priority for your new legislative agenda, and we are really hopeful that you'll keep it that way. The current structure of the tax keeps millions of dollars locked up in a marketing fund that is meant to attract more visitors, which is, a good thing. But it also entices more people to buy up homes that they're going to use for short-term rentals, which decreases the inventory of long-term rentals and increases the cost of living for residents in this county. And due to the high cost and low availability of affordable housing, many workers have had to leave the city and move out into the county to try to find affordable housing. And even if they do find affordable housing out there, another big problem is lack of reliable public transportation from out there. A personal anecdote, my daughter recently, she moved out to South Turkey Creek to rent a little room for $600 a month. But however, her car was recently totaled, and so since there's no transportation, public transportation, she had to move in with me in my tiny little apartment so that she can ride the bus to work. And I know many people are not that fortunate to have somebody in town that they can move in with. So even if they are able to move out in the county and find a lower price of rent, there aren't many jobs out there, and there's not reliable transportation, like I said, to get to the jobs in town. So people are really left with an impossible situation. What are people supposed to do? So I think that the county is one body that can do something about more affordable housing and providing more funding for transportation and things like that people need really to survive. And in addition, there have been so many people, so many workers specifically, moving out of the city and into the county that it's really had a big impact on businesses being able to hire workers, which in turn has a big impact on the service that we are able to provide to tourists. And we know that tourism is a vital component of our economy, and we really want to see it continue to thrive. However, we also know, as I'm sure you all do, that the industry will not survive without an adequate supply of workers, because if we can't live here, we can't work here, and then who's going to service the tourists? So in conclusion, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that you will vote for changes to occupancy tax as the top legislative agenda in January.
Thanks, Jen.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, Nina Tovich.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Nina Tovish, and I'm a resident of Asheville. My recent foray into electoral politics drove home to me the central importance of two issues for residents of Asheville and increasingly Buncombe County residents at large. The first is the crisis in affordable housing for our community. The second is the distorting effect on our economy of overdependency on tourism. And of course, the two are related. For the first time, there are more Airbnb rooms than hotel rooms in our area. Thousands of units of housing have been taken off the long-term rental market to serve visitors at higher and higher rates, while locals search in vain for housing they can afford. I'm delighted that Buncombe County voters have passed an affordable housing bond, but the fruits of that investment are years away and will only begin to make a dent in the overwhelming need our communities face. Tens of millions of tax dollars leave our county every year to pay for advertising to draw yet more tourist visits to our area. The TDA allocates the remaining 33% of its proceeds from a burgeoning occupancy tax as it sees fit, according to the judgment of undemocratically appointed members who represent those who most directly profit from tourism and who are ultimately both unrepresentative of and unaccountable to Buncombe residents. Change the occupancy tax deserves to be this commission's top legislative priority for the coming year. We need the occupancy tax to work for us, for the struggling service workers who cannot live near their hospitality jobs, for the generation of educated young folks who cannot see a future for themselves in Asheville, for our elders whose property valuations continue to rise while their incomes remain fixed. Here are just a few of many strategies to explore. Capping TDA marketing budgets at a specific amount and allowing overage to pass to the county and city general funds. Demanding equitable representation on the TDA. After all, these are governmentally collected funds, and in a democracy, we expect the disposition of those monies to be determined by democratically chosen representatives. Number 3, reduce the rate of the occupancy tax or eliminate it altogether. Even simply a credible threat of this might encourage folks in Raleigh to make some changes in how the tax is both apportioned and allocated. Our region has everything it needs: a beautiful natural environment, talented, energetic, creative, and compassionate people to grow a diverse economy that can both welcome guests and serve the needs and well-being of its residents abundantly. We just need the political will to ensure that the very things that make our communities worth visiting don't ultimately make it unaffordable for those of us who live here. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Nina. All right, and the last person that signed up is Peggy, and I'm sorry, the last name lives on 87 Louisiana.
Good evening. My name is Peggy Crow, and I'm a resident of Asheville. I really appreciate y'all presenting this resolution that will make much-needed changes to the occupancy tax. At one point, advertising for tourism made sense, but now we're always at the top of the list. Word of mouth is pretty much driving that. So tourism has exploded while the needs of the local residents have not been met. I see that there's 2 issues here, one being the infrastructure that's being overwhelmed by tourism, and the other is the inability of our service workers to afford housing. I'm going to concentrate on the latter. I've been a local realtor for a decade and watched affordable housing evaporate. Since 2020, our home prices have just skyrocketed, and even now that they are trending down, they're still highly unaffordable. The October MLS has shown that the monthly increase for October was 10%, and the average cost of housing in Buncombe is now $380,000. Inventory is rising, so supply-demand is not really a driving factor here. I've sadly watched while whole swaths of people are permanently out of the affordable housing market. They will never be able to buy. And where home prices rise, so do rents. So Asheville is the most expensive rental market in the metro market in North Carolina. Our average rental is $1,700 a month, and this is 12% higher than Charlotte, which is shocking to me because you can get a lot better jobs in Charlotte. Now, our wait staff averages about $14.50 an hour, and the Bowen report shows that even at $1,000 a month, which obviously is not going to happen around here, that 20% of our renters use over 50% of their income for housing. Imagine what life would be like if half of your gross income went to pay for where you lived. This is untenable, and it will only get worse. Service workers have two choices. They can, as someone else reiterated, they can live in the city where the prices are very high, but there is public transportation, or they can live in the county, but they have to have transportation, and sometimes that doesn't work. So, and there's a whole swath of people who could be working who cannot meet either of these options. And I've been concerned for a long time about the bulk of spending that has gone into advertising. We're taking an excessive amount for that, while our local resources won't be able to continue to support tourism. It's really a house of cards. And as someone mentioned earlier, if our essential workers can't afford to live here, then they can't afford to work here. So thank you in advance for making this a priority.
Thank you, Peggy. That's everyone that's signed up to be on the public comment list. Is there anybody else who would like to address the board during public comment? All right, well, thank you to everyone who took time to come out and express your views on these matters. We really appreciate hearing from you all. Okay, the next item on the agenda under good news is the 2022 Dogwood Awards. And I believe that Quentin Miller, the Sheriff of Buncombe County, is here to talk to us about this. Thank you for being here, Sheriff.
So good evening.
Good evening.
So first, let me just congratulate the new, in one case, and again, acknowledge that the commissioners have been reelected. So I just want to congratulate them. And so, again, congratulations. So what I'm here to speak about today is the Dogwood 2022 Dogwood Awards. These awards were actually presented by the North Carolina Attorney General, Josh Stein. So I'll read on November 22nd, North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein announced Sarah Gayton and Maya Hughes as recipients of the 2022 Dogwood Awards. The two were recognized for their fighting the opiate crisis. Gayton is employed at Buncombe County Sheriff's Office, and Hughes is with Sunrise Community for Recovery and Wellness. Together, they have helped provide medication-assisted treatment, better known as MAT, for justice-involved individuals suffering from opiate use disorder. The Dogwood Awards recognize North Carolinians who help make our communities safer, stronger, and healthier. So I believe they are here today. So please come this way if you like. I just want you guys to stand up, be recognized, please. Yeah, they shocked because we didn't plan anything here. So the additional comments I want to say is this, that I've said this and I'll say this tonight, that making a difference and making excuses, they don't reside together. These folks have made a difference. They have, we've been faced with a lot here, and a lot of excuses have been made. How do we help people who are incarcerated and who are suffering from this, I call it a disease. And tonight, I just want to tell you, these folks, they didn't make excuses. They've been making a difference with our MAT program. And this is only one or two in the entire state of North Carolina. People are coming here to Buncombe County to find out how they start their own. So again, support me in giving them another round of applause for their work. So thank you.
Thank you, Commission, particularly for your support on this early on. For the past 3 years, we've been driving hard collectively. And there have been a number of people that have opened the door and held it open for us as we've done this. Sheriff Miller, we wouldn't be where we are without his leadership all the way through. Captain Littrell's been here from the very beginning. Dr. Tracy Goen stepped in to volunteer before we formalized a program to see how we could help. Now he's been working with us for a number of years. And Maya and all the peers that have gone before her and that precede her. We're very thankful for everybody, so thank you so much.
Yeah, I guess I can. Hi, I guess I'm gonna keep it short and sweet and simple. I was very humbled only because there were predecessors in this role. It's, it's a blessing that people are arrested in Buncombe County and they have all the support, that peer support and officers, COs, everybody. It's a community and it's a team effort. And it's been an honor. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, the next item under presentations is the fiscal year 2022 audit presentation, and Don Warren, the finance director, will present this item.
Good evening, Commissioners. Hope you're all doing well. The audit has been concluded. We have our opinion. The process went really well. We didn't run into any issues. As like previous years, worked very well with CLA. Chris is here to provide you with the actual presentation and walk you through the audit. And then at the end, I would be appreciative if you would make a motion to accept the audit report. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good to see you again. As Don said, I'm Chris Kessler. I'm a principal with CLA. I am the lead of your audit engagement for the year 2022. A little bit about CLA for the new faces on the board here. We are the 8th largest public accounting firm in the country. We are a national firm, over 7,000 employees, 120 offices around the country. And me and my team of audit professionals around the firm focus solely on serving state and local governments. So we are not individuals that do taxes during tax season and serve governments during off season. I cannot answer your tax questions, so we'll hold those for another day. That's a little bit about us. So what did we do for you all for the 2022 financial statement audit and the compliance audit? So the services that we performed are no different than they've performed in prior years. The scope, the timing, things like that on our audit procedures did not change. We presented, or I presented to the audit committee earlier today, and one of the requests that came out of that committee meeting was a little bit of background on what our audit consists of. What are we looking at when we perform our financial statement audit and our federal and state compliance audit? And so what that means when we perform audit procedures, we are auditing on a sample basis. We're looking at material transactions, so big dollar amounts, high risk areas, and we're performing analytics and performing samples. So we're not looking at every dollar that has been spent. We're not looking at every number on the financial statements. We are taking a risk-based approach that industry standards require to really hone in on both where the risks may be based off of the nature of the operation of the client and where the large dollars are. So when you look at the financial statements, you talk about revenue, expenses, salaries, you look at internal controls. When you think of our federal and state grant compliance audit, we're looking at the big, large grants that you all expend every single year, and we're picking samples on some of the guidelines and the rules that the federal government and the state of North Carolina wants us to test. So we're looking at allowability, we're looking at eligibility, we're looking at work processes and procedures in accordance with the grants followed in what we're looking at. And so those are the real main components of what we look at in our audit procedures that allows us to deliver the reports that we do. So our reports that go into your financial statements, there's 3 main opinions and auditors' reports, and they're listed here, but it's essentially our auditor's opinion, which is the opinion on the financial statements, our report on internal control over financial reporting, which is where we report on internal controls and the test work we did around those, what we call our single audit report, which is our independent auditor's report on compliance with both federal and state grants. And then we also issue a governance communication letter to you all as the board. This summarizes our audit procedures. This is where we would include any sort of challenges or concerns or issues that arose during the audit, as well as maybe some significant items you all need to be aware of. There were no challenges or anything along those lines, so the letter itself is fairly straightforward, but I'm going to talk through some of the required communications that we have to include in those to you all on this next slide here. So some of the required communications that we have to make, is our auditor's opinion. It was unmodified. So that means it's a clean opinion on the financial statements. That's the highest level of opinion you all can receive. That means that the numbers are free of material misstatement based off those procedures we performed. We did include an emphasis of a matter paragraph this year, which is something that's different from prior years. What this is when there's certain changes in accounting policies or certain issues that have arisen during the audit, we have to include a paragraph in our opinion to draw attention to it. And there was a new accounting standard that the county had to implement this year that was very large, and it impacted the financial statements. So it didn't impact our opinion, but we do call attention to it within our opinion. So I did want to make you all aware as you look at our reports, that is different from prior years. Our auditor's opinion on compliance, again, unmodified, clean opinion. The scope and timing of the audit, it proceeded as planned. There were no changes as a result of anything that we found as we dug in. Significant accounting policies were in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP, as we refer to it. And then changes in accounting policies, as I mentioned before, the county did have to implement a new standard, GASB 87, that changed how you all have to account for leases within your financial statements. The simplest way to describe that change is that now the standard setters want you all to report lease obligations as you would long-term debt. So if you have a 5-year lease obligation that is non-cancelable, previously you were just expending those costs as they were incurred. The standard setters now want governments to put that obligation on their balance sheet and a corresponding asset for that vehicle, copier, building, whatever it may be that you're leasing. So if you look at your financial statements in comparison with prior years, you will see lease liabilities on your balance sheet this year where you hadn't in years past. The significant risks that we have to address within our audit procedures, this was a change this year that we have to call these out specifically in our communication. The risks themselves are not any different than prior years. As a standard, we always go into every audit knowing we have to design additional procedures around revenue recognition and internal controls and the possibility of management overriding internal controls. That's not to say that you all had a higher risk or anything different than prior years as it relates to these two things. The standards that we operate under require us to communicate them in a setting like this now. So from your all standpoint, we design additional procedures to address these risks that we consider to be a little bit higher than maybe some other areas. So when we dive into internal controls and really dig into the processes of approvals, reviews, proper accounting on those transactions, we've always been doing that to address that risk. We had no material audit adjustments in the audit. There were 2 uncorrected misstatements that were immaterial to the financial statements and will be cleaned up going forward. We had no difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We had no disagreements with management. And the management team was, as always, a pleasure to work with. They were cooperative, they were helpful, great to work with in getting us what we need. So, and I know as I've said this in prior years, we ask a lot of questions, we ask for a lot of information in performing an audit of this size. So it is a big lift for the finance team and everybody else involved to get us the information that we ask for. And they do a great job. They allow us to come in and complete our work efficiently and effectively and be here today presenting to you all. So just a big thank you to Don and his team. So from a financial statement standpoint, we had no reported findings. So a finding would be any sort of issue in internal control, any sort of audit adjustments that we've noted that are material to the financial statements. Basically, anything that we found would be considered a finding within the financials. We did make some process improvement, best practice suggestions, as we do with any of our audits that we've seen either in other clients or just things that we've seen elsewhere, just ways to improve and things to think about. Some highlights here of the numbers within your general fund and your financial statements. I won't go through all of these, but what I'll point you to this first bullet on the management's discussion and analysis. If you read anything within the ACFR, which is the financial statement document, is the management's discussion and analysis, and that's on page 7 through 17. That provides that high-level context of the operations of 2022, what changed from 2021, and also provides a little bit of a future economic outlook for what readers can expect going forward as well. So that's really management's synopsis of the year. And it's in a much more simple format than all of the detailed footnotes and things along those lines that meet the standard setters requirements that are a little more detailed and a little more difficult to wrap your head around. From a numbers standpoint, you look at the fund balance that's on here. So total fund balance, it's the difference between your assets and your liabilities. It's essentially your residual funds that are available for future decisions and spending. You look at it, you have $124 million of fund balance within your general fund, and $74.1 million is unassigned. Unassigned means it's not restricted, committed, assigned to various purposes, call it earmarked, or certain restrictions that are in place by granting agencies or things along those lines. So that's a very healthy percentage of your total fund balance and of your total expenditures on a year-to-year basis. So you all are in good financial shape there. From a single audit standpoint, which is the federal and state grant compliance audit that we do, we did have 6 major programs that we tested this year, and they're listed here. The 2 largest ones that were somewhat of a, I'd just say, newer and kind of hot programs that are everybody is having to deal with right now are the 2 that have come out of some of the coronavirus pandemic funds, the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, and the emergency rental assistance programs. Foster care, which is one of your normal, quote unquote, normal programs that you have and will continue to have once the coronavirus funds go away, and then the Medicaid cluster. From a state program standpoint, it was the public school building programs and juvenile crime prevention council programs. So outside of the pandemic-related funds, these are all programs that have been tested in years past. Your folks knew the audit requests, they knew what to be looking for, and we'll talk about the results in a little bit, but those program managers do a great job running those programs, and we're able to get us everything we needed very, very efficiently. So from a results standpoint, our opinions both on the federal side and the state side were unmodified. So again, clean opinion on compliance. We did have one finding that was in the federal programs as it related to internal controls. It's a significant deficiency. So when you think of the level of finding within the financial statements, you have material weakness, which is the highest level of finding, and then significant deficiency. That is it. There is no lower than that. So when you look at that and have a significant deficiency, the wording sounds maybe a little more intense than it's intended, but there is no lower level of documented finding within the compliance testing. And when we have a compliance item, there is no wiggle room in, do we write this? Do we make it a verbal comment? What's our end result here? We have to put it in writing. It's very black and white within the standards that we operate under. This related to documentation that wasn't included within a file on one item out of everything that we've tested. So I don't mean to diminish a finding, but it is fairly small in the scheme of everything else that was going on in the financial statements. Corrective action has already been implemented by management to make sure that that's documented within the grant files with vendors going forward, and it shouldn't be something that repeats next year. So with that said, I want to give, again, a big thanks to Don and his team for everything that they did to help us throughout the audit, and thank everybody else at the county that had to field our requests and field our questions and have all the conversations. So pleasure to work with everyone as always. And with that said, I'll pause for questions, comments, anything else.
Well, I'll just say thank you for the detailed report because I did have questions, but you answered them all in that. So thank you.
Great.
Chris, thanks again. Good report. But I think before I make the motion that we accept the report, we need to thank our CFO, Don Warren, his staff, Kessler, our internal auditor, and his staff, along with our county manager and all the department heads, because this is really a hands-on deck, all hands-on deck process. And I'd like to say this is a lot better when I started on the audit committee in 2017. We've come a long way, and thanks to our employees, to our staff for doing an excellent job to get us where we are today. And with that said, I'd like to move that we accept the 2022 audit.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you for your great,
Yeah,
very thorough
thanks,
report and all the work with the team on the whole process.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing on the FY 2024 annual Section 5311 capital grant application. Matt Cable will present this item.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to present information regarding the FY 2024 Section 5311 capital grant application. This required public hearing is part of our annual application to the North Carolina Department of Transportation, whereby we request funds to support capital needs for Buncombe County's community transportation system known as Mountain Mobility. This year's capital application involves a request of funding support for capital vehicle and equipment, camera equipment application. This includes 80% federal funds, 10% state funding, and then a 10% required local match. The total application is for just over $2 million at $2,088,884. The purposes of the grant are largely vehicle replacement. This is a fairly large request for us for capital vehicle replacement. And this reflects a delay in vehicle acquisition. So there were a number of issues that were reported in the media, kind of for everyone with vehicle acquisition. So what it really represents is about 2 years of vehicle replacement. As we were unable to complete a previous grant award, we had to release that award, and then they're allowing us to reapply for that funding support. So it isn't a typically kind of large request, but one that the NCDOT has vetted. So these include 8 raised roof vans, 6 of which are lift equipped, and then 8 light transit vehicles, 6 of which are 20-foot, so smaller light transit vehicles, and then 2 22-foot vehicles. All of those are proposed to have propane conversion kits installed. And then full camera system replacement. So each vehicle is equipped with cameras on board, both for the protection of the system as well as for the protection of the passengers on board for accident investigation and other purposes. And the request that is before you tonight is to hold a public hearing and to authorize the chairperson to execute the application. A public notice was provided in the newspaper as required by the grant application. And if you'll recall in September, so this is an atypical cycle, the board considered 5311 administrative grant application earlier in the year in September. And this is the second piece of that. So there was actually an authorizing resolution that occurred with that application, which holds for this particular application. But in order to provide the public input piece, we needed to have a hearing for the capital and then authorize this actual grant application. And I'm happy to answer questions that you may have at this time or after the public hearing as well.
So here's my question. You could probably guess it. So, the transit vehicles, of course, when we look at our vehicle fleet and the effort to have the greenest vehicle fleet we can, the transit system has an outsized impact on it, right? Because they're big vehicles and they run all the time, right? So I guess my question is just, were there any, in the propane stuff, I get that's kind of an alternative fuel and that's got some benefits. Were there any electric vehicle technologies that were available that function for the purpose that these vehicles perform?
Sure, and that is a consideration that we continue to make. And in fact, you'll recall, it was, I think, 2 cycles ago that we requested an electric hybrid vehicle that wasn't actually being produced anymore, so we weren't able to acquire that. The vehicles that we are looking to acquire in an electric version are not yet available. So you're seeing a lot of electrification of, for example, Ford Transit vans, which is largely what we use. And Ford Transit is the name of the vehicle, not what its intended purpose is. And we're seeing that really in the delivery vehicle side. So Ford has produced a product at this point, but it is not a traditional transit vehicle. There are certain companies that are producing electric vans that could be used potentially for transit, but another barrier is federal testing of the vehicles. So Altoona testing is required. So there are a number of steps in order for vehicles to really be available for us to procure and then put in place for use in the transit systems. So we would be looking for federal government approval of an electric vehicle for use in transit that would meet our specifications and needs. And likely what will there follow immediately or quickly thereafter is a state contract in order to allow us to quickly and easily acquire those vehicles. At this point, neither of those items have happened, so we're kind of awaiting that front. I will add, just for the benefit of the discussion about that issue, there will be operational considerations, and the impact of that isn't fully known until we know specifications. For example, the length of travel you can go on a single charge, recharge issues. So as we look at replacing with electric vehicles, those will be part of the operational considerations. But certainly, as soon as we have specifications, we would be looking to diversify our fleet further.
So the city's got the electric larger buses, right? And then it sounds like there's some smaller ones, but this space in between there's not a good option on the market right now, but it's being looked at, and hopefully there will be.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? All right, let's open the public hearing then on submitting the application. We'll be open at 5:55 p.m. Do any members of the public have wish to comment during the public hearing? All right, we'll close the public hearing at 5:56 p.m. And is there anything else we need to do on this item at this time, Matt?
So again, it's just the request to hold the public hearing and then create the authorization. There will be, it's basically the local funding authorization, so they're authorizing you as the chair to complete that piece of the application document.
Do we need to vote to authorize me to do that?
So we have the resolution authorizing you to enter into the application, so that should be sufficient. But there is a specific document that references the funding. So authorizing the chairman to execute the application would just reinforce that.
So we need to vote on the resolution?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Ms. Pender, we come to the county manager's reports.
Thank you, sir. And this evening, I would like to introduce Dr. Rob Jackson, Superintendent of Buncombe County Schools. Can you come up to the podium? Dr. Jackson is a native of Buncombe County. He grew up and attended school in Swannanoa. After serving in the United States Navy, he began his career in education as a student data manager and summer custodian as he worked his way through AB Tech and Western Carolina University to earn his degree to become a teacher. He then worked in Buncombe County Schools for 9 years as a classified employee and then an elementary school teacher. Dr. Jackson also served as an assistant principal in Gaston County and as a principal in 3 different schools in Union County. In 2014, Dr. Jackson was named superintendent of Edenton-Chowan Public Schools in Eastern North Carolina, a position he held for 6 years before being named as superintendent of Carteret County Schools. Over the past several years, Dr. Jackson has received multiple recognitions for his leadership, including being named the North Carolina High School Athletic Association's Superintendent of the Year, a Dr. Sam Houston of Houston Superintendent Leadership Award recipient, and the Dr. Brad Sneeden Superintendent Leadership Award. He was also honored as a 2011 Wells Fargo, North Carolina State Principal of the Year and the North Carolina High School Principal of the Year by the North Carolina Association of Principals and Assistant Principals. Please welcome Dr. Jackson.
Great.
Do you have anything you want to say?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Good evening, Chairman Newman, Commissioners, County Manager Pender. I can't put into words how incredibly grateful and blessed I feel to have the opportunity to return home to serve in the school system that I owe so much to. As a parent of graduates of this school system, as a former student in the school system, as someone who worked in the school system, I absolutely feel indebted to Buncombe County Schools, and now to have the opportunity to again serve here is something that I'm very grateful for. I also want to reflect to you the words of my predecessor, Dr. Tony Baldwin, as he shared with me the great relationship the school system shares with this Board of County Commissioners. certainly we recognize the tremendous investment the Board of County Commissioners make in our public schools and Buncombe County schools. And I want you to know that we very much appreciate that. Certainly, I commit to you to continue our legacy of being phenomenal stewards of those resources that are entrusted to our school system as we recognize the importance of serving our children. At this time, in my first month, I have now visited all 45 of our schools. I had a wonderful visit in each of those schools of about an hour. Today was my first day-long visit. I'm now embarking on a full day in each of the schools, and I want to share with you that from Barnardsville to Black Mountain, from Pisgah to Arden, and all points in between, as I left each of the 45 schools, bar none, I left incredibly impressed by the men and women who are giving deeply of themselves to serve the children of Buncombe County. And so I'm grateful to our county manager for the opportunity simply to say, hi, I'm glad to be here. I look forward to working with you, and I commit to you to do our very best for our greatest resource, the children of Buncombe County. Thank you so very much. And I did want to highlight Board Member Judy Lewis, who joined me this evening at the meeting. I very much appreciate her presence as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ms. County Manager.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. We're all really excited that you have come back to Buncombe County, and you obviously bring just a wealth of experience to this, one of the most important jobs in our community, heading up the Buncombe County Schools. And I know I speak for the whole board in expressing, our recognition that our work with the school board is one of the most important responsibilities that we all have as county commissioners. And we've had a great relationship with the school board, as well as with the Asheville City Schools. And Tony Baldwin, of course, did such terrific work for this community for many years. And so we're grateful for his service, and we're grateful that you're going to be stepping in, and look forward to working with you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
That's my report.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, under old business, we have a resolution declaring the results of the special bond referendum on the bond orders. So Don Warren, what happened? How did it all turn out?
How did it all turn out? Surprise, they passed. Yeah, as a requirement for the GO bonds, you all have to certify and declare the results of the election. The resolution is in your packet, but I'll put on my glasses and I will read to you. So, for the referendum, there was 209,476 qualified voters. For the 30 million open space money, the number of yes was 79,365. The total number of no votes was 35,859. For the 40 million affordable housing bonds, the number of yes was 71,373, and the number of no was 43,909. You need to make a motion to approve the resolution, if you would like, so we can move forward with the GO bonds. And I'll answer any questions.
Motion to approve the resolution.
Just one comment I would make on it. You're getting lots of praise this evening, Don, and this isn't just for you. But I just would say, from the idea, from the time these bond referendums were just an idea, to the time that they were, the staff helped us kind of get organized to potentially place these on the ballot box for the voters to consider. It was not a real long runway. So I just really want to express appreciation to everyone on the county team who helped, who took this idea and really dug into it, figured out what needed to be done so that the voters would have a chance to weigh in on these important investments. So thanks for doing that, and obviously the voters. There was a lot of receptivity and support for these, and also thanks to everyone who came out and cast their vote, whichever way you voted on it. Thanks for everyone who participated in that.
Yeah, and I appreciate all of you so that we hit all those deadlines and milestones. So that made it really easy, as easy it could be anyway.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks, Don.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, we have a few organizational things to look at. The first is the selection of the vice chair. So I want to say thank you to Commissioner Edwards for serving as vice chair over the last 12 months. And of course, our practice is to rotate this position annually. So therefore, it is time to consider the vice chair position for the coming year.
I would like to nominate Terry Wells.
There is a motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'll just say thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner Edwards, for serving for the past year, and it's my honor to serve this next year.
All right, the meeting schedule for 2023. Avril, is there anything we need to note on this?
The one that's highlighted on July 5th, that's just, normally we cancel the second meeting, but this one is the day after the holiday, so I just want to bring that to your attention in case you wanted to change your practice.
And this year, we actually canceled the first one in July.
It was right around the 4th as well.
Yeah, so we did, so. I'm wondering if we should cancel that one since it's right around the 4th, because I think that probably impacts a lot of people's travel plans.
Yes.
I agree. I think that
Do you need us to make a motion?
Yes, please.
Oh, if you, go
Or-
ahead, Lamar.
All right, that sounds good. So we'll plan on canceling the first meeting in July. We will keep the third meeting in December, the third Tuesday in December on the calendar. We oftentimes delete it, but let's keep it on there until we get closer to it and see if we need it or not. All right, sounds great. All right, we have a couple of budget amendments that John Hudson will help us with. The first one is for reissuance of the AA 716 CDC COVID-19 vaccination program.
Good evening. The budget amendment for the reissuance of Agreement Addendum 716. This budget amendment issues the remaining balance of Agreement Addendum 716 for the COVID-19 vaccination program in the amount of $309,269. It should have been issued to us in September, but the state erred in the amount of the addendum. These funds will continue to be spent on activities to coordinate and expand COVID-19 vaccination activities, to include outreach, contract staff, advertising, and supplies, as well as salaries, and can be used until June 30th of 2024.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the budget amendment.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, and the budget amendment for the Safer Together grant extension?
So this budget amendment, the Safer Together grant, has been awarded a no-cost extension to use $456,100 of remaining funds. This three-year grant was set to expire in September, but has now received approval of an extension and amendment of the budget. This grant will continue efforts for post-overdose response. The original grant was budgeted by ordinance to the line level, and we are adjusting the expenditure lines for more flexibility in spending per grant guidelines.
Motion to approve the budget amendment.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the budget amendment for local assistance and tribal consistency funding.
So the Department of the Interior provides payment in lieu of taxes to counties for tax-exempt federal lands for which the county must maintain a level of service. Buncombe County received $93,992 for almost 32,000 acres in fiscal year '22. Acknowledging that this program is underfunded, the federal government has awarded $153,438 of ARPA funds for local assistance and tribal consistency funding to the county. The use of the funds is quite broad, and Buncombe County is elected to utilize these dollars to fund the Call for Equity mural project, as well as additional public art projects if funds remain.
Motion to approve the budget amendment.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks, John.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, we've got board appointments, and some of those are for the community appointments, and then we also have some boards and commission items to discuss which commissioners serve on. Let's do the community ones first. So the audit committee has three appointments to be made. Is that right? And there's two people who have applied?
Yes, and one is a commissioner as well.
The third
Third-
is
the third-
the.
so we'll handle that, yes.
Okay, so there's two citizen appointments to be made. All right, and we have two applicants.
Correct.
Did the note here says the audit committee was going to let us know some recommendations?
Yes.
Did they have any recommendations?
This was printed, I did send a recommendation earlier today
Okay.
after it was sent to me this morning. They had a meeting this morning, and both the applicants that are listed here were recommended.
Okay.
Yeah, both. One comes from the elected official, and the second one is, even though he's retired from Michigan, he's representing the banking community, because he's been on the board of White Mountain Savings and Loan.
Right. All right. I'll make a motion to appoint Patrick Fitzsimmons and William Christie.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, the Home and Community Care Block Grant Advisory Committee, there's three reappointments. Two of them have served beyond the policy's term limits provision, but in the past, they've been given extensions to that. An exception has been made for these folks. So, so one option is to reappoint all of them, but I just wanted people to be aware, this is one where the term limits provision, we would be granting an extension to it, which we rarely do. And I think when it's come up in the past, we've actually kind of taken a fairly, that actually matters a lot. But there have been reasons why I think we've in the past been advised that it will be challenging to do this without an exception. So I'm okay with it, I guess is what I'm getting around to. Does anybody have any comments on this one? I'll make a motion to appoint Daniel Bierman, Susan Scheimer, and Meg White.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The Juvenile Crime Prevention Council has one reappointment. And Philip Cooper is applying for reappointment.
I move to approve Philip Cooper.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. HRC. We tried to pull together a meeting to interview these folks, but the window had just sort of closed for us to do that. So we haven't done the interviews with these folks yet. They need us to appoint these folks. So I don't know if I guess I'm just thinking there's not really going to be an opportunity to do this until our first meeting in January is the reality. So could we just agree we want to find a time to interview these folks so we can make that decision at our first meeting in January? Okay. Obviously, holidays and stuff are coming up, but I don't know if we need to figure this out like while we're sitting here, but just hang on one sec. Let's look here. So the first meeting in January is on January the 3rd, that first Tuesday. Are there, we have an affordable housing subcommittee meeting that day, and that's also the day when you have early childhood education, right? There's four applicants one of whom is not, is specifically not recommended to serve based on his application, that, you know, the comments he volunteered about his interest in serving. So we probably need, you know, less than an hour to do this. So should we look at doing it before all the meetings get started on Tuesday, the 3rd? Okay. Does that sound good, Lamar? Does that sound workable?
Yes, that does. Do y'all have a specific time that y'all might want to start?
We start at 1. If we start at noon, we should be able to do it, I think. Okay. Let's plan on noon.
I want to make a consideration. I was going to get to this, but we also may want to consider when we're going to do the interviews for the Reparations Commission. And it may not have to happen the 3rd, but I was going to mention that we have opened the application process, and that ends this Friday, the application process. And as of now, we only have 3 applicants.
Okay. I would suggest that we consider interviews for those at the following Tuesday, which tends to be less meeting, you know, fewer meetings. So maybe we could look at that on the 17th.
Okay. On the 3rd, we'll just discuss it and make sure everybody is still okay with that.
Let's kind of like think about the 17th afternoon for those.
All right, thank you.
Those interviews. All right, great. All right, those are all the community appointments. So let's now go over the county commission board and commission appointments where there's commissioners involved. Does everybody have the list? Does somebody not have the list to look at? So I think we should just walk through it, starting at the top. And so, yeah.
Discussion, right?
So what I was going to propose is that if there's, my hunch is that for the vast majority of these, there's going to be consensus around what to do, but I don't want to, you know, if there's anywhere there's a question mark, or maybe several members are interested in serving, or there's a position and nobody has kind of decided, yes, I want to do that. So why don't we just kind of go through, and everywhere there's a consensus, then we could go ahead and basically kind of make that decision. On any of those where there's a question, we can identify that, and then we can plan on coming back to those at the next meeting. Does that sound like a good approach for this discussion? All right, and I have tried, and I know I haven't, I've tried to check in with everyone to kind of get a sense for some things people are interested in, but some of those have even just been conversations this afternoon. So I'll try to share some of the things I've heard, but everyone, please feel free to, don't be shy, raise your hand if you're interested in doing something. All right, so the first one is the AB Tech Joint Advisory Committee, where currently Al and Terry are the county's 2 reps. Are y'all interested in continuing to serve?
I am, but I will say if Martin's interested, we can have a conversation about it.
I'm happy to hold off. Not my top choice, but
Why don't we put a little, let's hold off on that one for now. We'll go through, if we get through Martin and you feel like, you know, hey, I'd like to do another one, then that one's there. If you feel like, oh my gosh, I just like signed up for way more than I thought I was going to, then Terry can keep doing it, okay? All right, the Affordable Housing Subcommittee is Amanda Parker and myself. Haven't heard anybody wanting to jump off at this time, so, and haven't heard anybody else saying, please put me on that committee. So, all right, we'll say we're sticking with the same group. The Asheville Buncombe Regional Sports Commission, Amanda is our liaison there, and you want to keep doing that? Great. The Audit Committee, Al Whitesides serves, and Robert previously served. I've heard Terry expressed interest in serving. Does anybody else have an interest in serving? All right, sounds like Terry Wells is going to be our second person on there. Thanks for doing that. All right, Early Childhood Education and Development Committee, Jasmine and Al are both on it. Robert served on it. I've heard Martin express an interest in serving on that committee. Is anybody else interested in that appointment? All right, Martin, thanks for. It's so good. They have so much fun. All right. Economic Development Coalition, Al serves as our board rep there. And Al, are you willing to keep on doing that? Awesome. Terrific. All right, Energy and Environment is Terry, Parker, and myself. It's actually, I think it's maybe the funnest committee
We could
of
figure
them all.
out a way to determine this once and for all.
It's really, really fun. We had a 4-hour meeting last week, and it was fun the whole time.
The whole time.
Okay. It was a double meeting. It was like a back-to-back. Okay. The Blue Horizons Community Council liaison, I'm the liaison to that group, and happy to continue doing that. But if anybody else is interested, be happy to discuss. All right. Health and Human Services, Amanda has been serving on it, but I've heard her express that she'd be open to someone else stepping onto that board.
I would be interested and ready to, but if anyone else has a strong interest, I don't want to.
All right, Jasmine Beach Ferrara, you got it. The Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, we currently don't have a commissioner as serving as liaison to that group.
I'm happy to come back to that one at the end, maybe see where we land.
Okay. Okay. Justice Resource Advisory Council, Jasmine is serving there.
I would love to continue doing that.
Great.
But if anyone else has a strong interest, please speak up, because I've been on it for a while, and we can continue talking also if anyone wants to. But I'm happy to stay.
Okay. Land of Sky Regional Council, Terry is our liaison there.
I'm happy to continue unless someone is specifically willing to step into that.
Great. And Land of Sky RPO, TAC board member is Parker. I don't think there is an alternate to that one. I used to do that too, and I don't remember there ever being an alternate for it. I think that's just the regular MPO, I'm not using the right terms, but the other two MPO positions. All right, speaking of which, okay, I'm sorry, never mind. The Local Emergency Planning Committee, Amanda is on it. Okay, I'm just going to keep going unless people speak up. The French Broad River MPO, Parker and I are the two primary members. Amanda's the alternate. I'm interested in rotating out of that and position, and wanted to suggest that Amanda rotate in, that we basically kind of switch positions where she would be the alternate and I'll be the alternate and she'll be the primary. Anyone else? It's very important, but I will say they are not the funnest meetings, but they are really important, so. Very important. Okay, and often very interesting. Okay, the MSD, Robert served on it along with Al, so the Robert position is open. I haven't heard anybody express interest in this one thus far. So does anybody have an interest in the MSD?
I'm happy to do it if no one else is.
Okay, great. I think you got it. Riverfront Redevelopment Commission, Parker has been doing that. keep doing it? Okay, all right. All right. School Capital Fund Commission, Terry serves on it, and I serve on it. I've heard Amanda expressed interest in serving on this board, and I'd be happy to rotate off of it. Anyone else have an interest in it? This board recommends spending more money in less time than anybody else in Buncombe County. And it's, we have a lot of real estate to take care of, right, Dr. Jackson? So anyway, it's a great board working with the city and county schools. So Amanda, thanks for stepping up on that one. Yep. All right. The Tourism Development Authority, Robert, this is a non-voting position on the board of directors. Robert was our appointee to that board. And Terry has expressed interest in this. All right, excellent. And lastly on the list is the Via County Commissioner Advisory Board. My name is listed, but the staff, the county manager has an appointee, don't you, that represents the county at these meetings?
There's a space for a commissioner as well, and I
Yeah.
believe Jasmine has been, yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
So
It is, great, okay. Well, my name, all right, well, great, and you're willing to keep doing that?
I am willing to keep doing that, yeah.
All right, Jasmine, it is. All right, so we had a couple of, well, I guess the one that we didn't, Martin said he was willing to serve on the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, and then, or open to that, and then the AB Tech Joint Advisory Committee.
So I'm happy to serve, but I want to give Martin an opportunity if he's interested in that one. I'm happy for you to proceed with that if you would like to.
If you recommend it, I'd give it a shot.
Okay.
All right, so I think we have agreement on all of them. So I think we're good. Lamar, did you get all of those? Is there anything that we need to clarify?
I didn't quite get the JCPC, the juvenile, who was doing that? Martin did?
Yes.
And the AB Tech?
He serves on it now.
I'm already on it.
He's already on it.
I'm already on it, it's technically filling a new spot.
Just moving seats.
Wait, so okay,
So
so
we
would
went
your current spot become vacant if you're appointed to this commission spot, or how does that work?
So technically, my current spot is just expired or is about to expire. So I think in the new year, just rolling into the county commission spot as opposed to combining.
Okay, makes sense. All right, good. So do we need to vote on this? I think there was consensus that can be reflected in the minutes around this. Is that adequate?
Yeah, I'll be happy. I just want to make, or just have one discussion. So with the new individuals that have been put in place, are we going to finish the terms that these commissioners were on, or are we going to start the reappointment now and these are new terms? Because some of them don't expire until a few years from now. So just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Let's just say they start now, right? Isn't that the simplest?
The only thing is, like, I'm just going back in my head around, like, serving on the School Capital Fund Commission. Some of these boards, I think they have concerns around a bunch of people's terms all coming up at the same time. So in some ways, they kind of were sort of specific about setting up when vacancies would occur.
That one expires January 2023. So next month, that one, you roll right into that. But some has 2025.
Yeah, like the audit committee, for instance, Commissioner Wells is taking Commissioner Presley's position, and it expires in 2025, that position. So if I mean, it won't count as a term, well, it doesn't matter about the commission anyway, but it won't count as a full term because you're coming in the middle of the term. So it's however you want to do it, to be honest with you.
I mean, as a practical matter, if we said we're going to go with the option of they're going to fill out the terms, right? Then when their term ends, like, because normally we do this like every 2 years, basically, for most of them. But if someone's term did expire, then it would be on our county commission agenda to review it as a board appointment, just like any other, right? Like, this term is up, and probably we would just say, if they want to keep doing it, we reappoint them, right? But we would just handle it as kind of like a routine board and commission reappointment. Is that right?
We would if we follow the expiration that is on there, but if we start it now, we're going to kind of reset the clock with expiration dates because they're going to be that term of whatever the term limit is or the term length is, if that makes sense. Because right now, because the appointment will start today
Yeah.
for some of these boards, and so we can finish the term out and then come back to those. Or if they're, let me say this, if they're within a couple of months, I won't have us come back and do this. You see what I'm saying? But if they're like in 2023 or 2025, then we can finish the term and then we can come back at that point and address it.
So you don't see any problem with just saying everybody's starting these terms today,
Correct.
where it's a new appointment?
Correct.
Okay. That seems simplest. All right. Great.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone. Thanks for serving all these different boards and commissions. We do have some announcements, and then we do need a closed session, so I'll get to that next, but let me do the announcements. On December 13th at 10 a.m., the county commissioners will hold a budget retreat at the East Asheville Library, 3 Avon Road, Asheville, NC 28805. January 3rd at 3 p.m., the commissioners will hold their briefing meeting at 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. On January 3rd at 5 p.m., the commissioners will hold a regular meeting at 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. Mr. Frew, can you explain the purpose of the closed session?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We have two items. One is for the commission to direct staff regarding the price and other material terms of a possible real estate acquisition. And the other is a legal matter to discuss with attorneys employed by the county. So that's pursuant to 143, 31811, A5 and A3. And we just need some direction from the board.
Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the commission will take no action following, the closed session will simply adjourn the meeting. We're in closed session.